Okay, guys, we're about to start our notes over the Mughal Empire. If you would like to follow along, you can get to the textbook, page 451, chapter 18, section 3. This past week, we've been talking about the gunpowder empires, and the Mughal is the third of the major gunpowder empires that we're going to be talking about in the Middle East. So I'm going to start the slideshow. You can pause this video at any time if I'm going too fast. If you want to get the notes down, feel free to pause. But make sure that you're listening to the video, not just watching the slides, because some of what I'm saying is really important and it could be on the test. Okay, so the Mughal Empire. Let's see. Okay. The Mughal Empire. Here is a map of the Mughal Empire. As you guys can see, it is mainly made up of modern-day India. It goes a little bit north of the Indus River, a little bit north of the Ganges River, but it really makes up most of modern-day India. Here is the border of present-day India in pink, and the Mughal Empire stretches a little bit north, but it makes up most of what is modern-day India. So right now would be a great time to take out your map and fill in where the Mughal Empire is. Okay, the history of the Mughal Empire. Mughal just means Mongol. It was the word for the people that were invading India during this time. We talked about earlier in the semester, or in fall semester, the Gupta Empire in India. And after that fell, there was lots of fighting over that land. Some Hindus were fighting over it. Arab Muslims fought over it. In the northwestern India, it split up into small kingdoms, and it was ruled by leaders that were called Rajputs. And we're going to talk about Rajputs throughout the notes, so just that's what you know what they are. They were the kings that ruled the states in northwestern India. So after Gupta Empire fell, Hindus, Arab Muslims are fighting over the land. And in 1000 AD, the Turks, remember the Ottoman Turks, we talked about them on Monday, the Turks took over and they created what is known as the Delhi Sultanate. And they had about 33 sultans throughout the time that they were in charge. Delhi was just ruled by some Turkish warlords. Like I said, 33 different sultans ruled this territory in Delhi. Timur the Lame, we talked about him on Monday, he actually went in and destroyed the town of Delhi. So the Turks had control of India until 1494, when a man by the name of Babur, he inherits the land and begins to lay the groundwork for what is known as the Mughal Empire. Babur inherits some land that's actually north of India, and he is forced out because he was only 11 years old when he inherits it. So he's forced out, he's forced to, by the elders, he's forced to move down, and he actually takes an army south and starts to conquer land that is now India, and that lays the groundwork for the Mughal Empire. Babur is considered the first emperor of the Mughal Empire. He was a very effective leader. He was able to lead 12,000 men against 100,000 men, 100,000 Turks to take over Delhi. He's able to defeat those Rajputs that are in the northwestern part of India. And like what I said earlier, he laid the groundwork for the Mughal Empire. He was very effective. It was said that he could leap a wall holding a man under each arm. He was extremely a great leader. His military had lots of respect for him. So he's regarded as a very good Mughal leader. His son was not considered that way. His son was very incompetent, so he's not even talked about. But his grandson, who follows his son, is very, very influential, and his grandson's name was Akbar. Akbar was Babur's grandson. He was a very devout Muslim, except he defended religious freedom, and he shows this. He marries 2 Hindus, a Christian, and a Muslim. Okay, he's very devout. But he also is very interested in religious freedom. He abolished taxes on Hindus and non-Muslims. Remember when we had the Islamic unit, we talked about that the Muslims imposed higher taxes on non-Muslims. Well, Akbar wanted to do away with that. He didn't think that was very fair. He also governed through a bureaucracy. Just like the Chinese, we talked about establishing bureaucracy. He established a bureaucracy in the Mughal Empire. However, what was different about his bureaucracy is anyone could rise to office. You could be Christian, Muslim, Hindu, anybody. He was very non-discriminatory toward religion, which was interesting for the time. He also came up with a very clever tax system. Instead of setting a flat tax, he only taxed a percentage of the value of the peasants' crops for the year. So it made it easier for peasants to pay their taxes, and it also made it easier for made it people more willing to pay their taxes. Just like most of the gunpowder empires did, he recognized his military powder as the root of his strength. He would equip his armies with heavy artillery. He used cannons to break down enemy walls. But one of the interesting things that Akbar did, which was probably the most beneficial to his military, was instead of going after enemies, he made them into allies. He appointed some of the Rajputs in the northwestern states as officers, so that got them on his side. He didn't try to make enemies out of people. He really tried to make them friends, and that helped him to conquer more territory in that way. Akbar was able to extend the Mughal Empire, and he unified over 100 million people, which was more than the people in Europe altogether. So he was able to really, he had a very vast empire, a huge empire. He was very successful. Another thing about Akbar that we know is Akbar had expanded the Mughal culture. Because he was expanding land, he was blending culture. One thing that is interesting about Akbar's reign is the language spoken in India. While the high culture, the rich, they spoke Persian, that was what was spoken at court, the language of Hindi started to come out. That is the most common language in India today. And another language known as Urdu, the simple translation means from the soldiers' camp. And it was a blend of Persian, Hindi, and Arabic. And it was what was spoken by the Mughal armies in their camps. And so it kind of became real popular. But Hindi is still the most popular language. But that came out of Akbar's rule. Also, he was a big, strong proponent of the arts. They had these illustration books. There were these really detailed, small paintings, and they were called miniatures. He also was very into literature. He valued architecture. The style that was founded under his reign is known as Akbar period architecture. It's very big, very graceful, has very intricate stonework that kind of depict Hindu themes, and he was very influential on architecture and literature. He rewrote some of the famous Indian poems. The Ramayana, he rewrote it, and the version he rewrote is actually more popular than the original. Another really important thing that I would know, that you guys need to know, is that he created his own religion. Like I said earlier, he was Muslim, but he was very curious about religion. He was very always wanting to research and study religion, and out of that he created what is known as the divine faith. And this was just a mixture of Hinduism, Jainism, Christianity, and Sufism. And if you don't remember about Sufism, it was just being a Sufi Muslim was giving up all possessions and living a life of poverty. This had few followers, and after Akbar dies, so does the divine faith. But during his reign, he did practice the divine faith. And this probably comes from his religious tolerance. He had high religious tolerance, so he was able to take all sides and combine them together. Akbar dies, and when he dies, he leaves his rule to his successors. Akbar's son takes over, and his name is Jahangir. Jahangir was much like Akbar's father. He was weak, and he was not a good leader, and he left most of the state affairs to his wife, and his wife's name was Nur Jahan. And Nur Jahan, once she was given control, she instilled her father as the prime minister, and she sought power through Jahangir's sons. Now, Jahangir's son, Khusraw, he rebelled. He rebelled against his father, and she basically ousted him from the family and named Shah Jahan the next emperor. And Shah Jahan becomes the next emperor. Unlike Akbar, Nur Jahan, and Jahangir, they reject religious tolerance. They only promote Islam. And since after Khusru is ousted, he turns to the religion called the Sikhs. They also reject the Sikhs. A Sikh, that was just a non-violent religious group, and it blended Buddhism, Hinduism, and Sufism together. They basically become the hatred of the Mughal Empire and the Mughal leaders. The Sikhs, they helped Khusru when he was ousted and when he was exiled. They defended him, so Khusru becomes a Sikh. Since Khusru was shunned from the family, the Mughals are not very defensive of the Sikhs. They are very offensive toward them, and they don't accept them. So religious tolerance fell by the wayside with Akbar. Shah Jahan is he was Jahangir's son, and he was Akbar's grandson. He was a very interesting ruler. He didn't do a whole lot of anything except for build very intricate buildings. When he first took office, he assassinated everyone who would come in his way. So he assassinated all of his potential rivals, but something interesting about him is he loved his wife very much. His wife, her name was Mumtaz Mahal. She was a Persian princess, and he was actually supposed to marry her niece. He was supposed to marry her niece, but he fell in love with her, and he loved her until the day that he died. When she died, he built the Taj Mahal. She actually died in childbirth, giving birth to their 14th child. I know it sounds like a lot, and he built the Taj Mahal, and it's down here, this picture, and you guys have probably seen this before. You've heard of it. It's known as one of the seven wonders of the world. He built the Taj Mahal, and it's just a tomb for her. It's just a memorial, and it was extremely intricate. He was very devoted to building extremely intricate buildings. After he builds the Taj Mahal, he builds the Red Fort, which is basically like a big castle, and it had a gold-crusted throne with diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. He spent a lot of money on buildings. So in turn, as he's spending a lot of money on buildings, the people are starting to suffer because he is taxing them heavily to pay for these building projects. India was also going through a famine. During this time, Shah Jahan, he becomes very ill, and his 4 sons get into a civil war over the throne. His 3rd son, Aurangzeb, is able to take hold of the throne. Before his father dies, he kills the oldest brother and places Shah Jahan in a jail for the rest of his life. And that's where Shah Jahan actually dies, is in jail. So they were very ambitious for the throne. Aurangzeb, he is able to get the throne in civil war, and he becomes the next ruler. Aurangzeb was the last ruler of the Mughal Empire. As things were falling and crumbling under Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb kind of continues in that way. He ruled from 1658 to 1707. He was a master military strategist and an empire builder. He saw himself as he wanted to expand the empire. He wanted to get more land, and in this way, he was very oppressive toward the people of India. He was very Islamic. He was very rigidly enforcing the Islamic laws. He brought back the taxes on the non-Muslims. And the Hindus and the other people living in the Mughal Empire who before and under Akbar were able to live freely, now were not. And so the Hindus became enraged and they rebelled. And Aurangzeb continued to levy high taxes. Now, as the Hindus are rebelling, they're fighting out against the government. Therefore, the government has to get support and get armies. So Aurangzeb is having to continually get taxes because he's continually needing to build up his army to put down these rebellions that the Hindus are rising up. So things were not going well for Aurangzeb. Hindus were rebelling. He was having to build stronger armies. It kind of turned